Are we becoming dumber? I think we are becoming cognitively weaker, but no one is actually talking about it. No one is saying it out loud. And it's not because we are less intelligent. It's because we have never had to use our brains less. And it's been something that's been on my mind recently, especially around more conversations coming up around AI, like ChatGPT's release of ChatGPT Health, the conversations around people transitioning from ChatGPT to Claude, and then creating these whole personalities, these whole assistants, these projects that do so much in your life and your business. So that is why this episode is really dedicated to what is actually happening to your brain in the world of AI and the digital landscape, but more importantly, how we can protect our brain health with the constant use of social media and AI, which is quickly replacing our need to critically think, because your brain is so important. It is one of the biggest leverage tools that you have right now to stand out, to be successful, to differentiate yourself in a market that sounds really robotic and sounds the same, because it is unique to you. It is unique to the way you think. It is unique to the way your brain creatively processes things together. And we want to be able to protect that instead of like creating brain rot in our brain. So I've been so excited to dive into this episode. A recent MIT Media Lab study actually reported that excessive reliance on AI-driven solutions may actually contribute to cognitive atrophy and shrinking of critical thinking abilities. And though this study is small and it's not robust enough to actually conclude that, it does get me thinking, are we becoming dumber? Are we forgetting things that you used to remember? Are we struggling to focus on more long-form content? Like if you were to sit through a 2-hour lecture on a really specific topic, maybe like you did at university or school, would you be able to stay focused the entire time? Because the way I feel is that we've never had more access to information, and yet we are thinking less than ever before. And I look back at my education, whether that was at high school and university, and social media didn't really exist. It was just Facebook, and it was like in the era where we're just posting random statuses. And AI definitely didn't exist. And I honestly believe it is now a flex to say that I wrote a 20,000 word chemistry assignment in grade 12, and I was able to memorize 600 muscles in the human body, including which bone they attached onto and inserted to, without the use of AI. I am in awe of my brain and what it did. And I used to pride myself on how sharp my brain was, how intelligent my brain is. And lately I've been just like typing into ChatGPT instead of like actually trying to think. So I'm thinking like, could I produce that same level of cognition without AI now? And I actually don't know. I don't think I could. I think my ability to critically think or analyze and problem solve has been significantly reduced. We're like inputting data in and getting a result in like 1 minute flat. We're using it to think up content ideas, and instead of using our creative brain, which is what makes us all individually different, we're getting it to write proposals and pitch decks or literally anything, and taking that as fact instead of critically thinking and critically analyzing whether this is a credible source, the different biases, whether this actually makes sense. Or we're literally being fed the same pieces of content that you're interacting with. So say like you watched a reel on parasites, and now the algorithm will start to feed you parasite cleanses, symptoms of parasites. So now you think you have a parasite. You are convinced that there is a parasite inside you, when in actual fact, you likely do not. It's just that you have interacted with, and it's what the algorithm is feeding you. But you're attributing that instead of looking up your own research, instead of diving into the experts, instead of consulting with people, you're taking that as fact. And tech enthusiasts talk about AI like it is the god of everything. It is the most important thing that we have ever done in the universe. Like it is the answer to our every problem. It is the solution to everything we've talked about. And look, I'm definitely not anti-AI. This is not a poo-poo on AI episode. Like I love AI. I love it. I love the efficiency. I love the productivity. I love that we can do things that would normally cost us like tens of thousands of dollars in such a short span of time. We have access to things that we've never had access before. And to be honest, I probably haven't even dipped my toes into the capabilities of AI and what these models can actually do. And I actively want to invest in learning in it. But as someone who cares about her health, not only of my body, but of my brain, because no matter what industry you're in, people pay you for your brain. It is the thing that will set you apart in life. Your ability to be creative, to critically think, to problem solve, to think outside of the box, to communicate with a level of emotional intelligence and rationality. That's something that an AI bot can't do. I have also worked in aged care. As a physiotherapist, I have seen firsthand the impacts of Alzheimer's, of dementia, of cognitive decline, and some of the smartest people I have ever seen. Like, I'm talking about deans of universities, mathematicians, successful business owners and CEOs back in their day have taken to a disease of the brain. And the impact it not only has on you, but on your loved ones, of your family. So I would like to preserve my brain health as long as possible. Thank you very much. So in my being of like, is AI making me dumber? So I've dove into the research because I love to bring you the receipts. And then obviously we're going to go through all the strategies, all the brain health strategies, so that we can help support your brain health as much as possible. On the use of technology and the general brain rot associated with the doom scroll, the constant feed of information and like dopamine inducing hits that social media provides, studies have actually come out stating that our attention span is now shorter than a goldfish. It went from approximately 12 seconds in 2000 to 8.5 seconds in 2024. Which makes sense because there is so much information, it can actually start to overwhelm our cognitive processing, making it harder to retain and recall information. It also actually changes the structure of your brain. It has been shown that in children who use a lot of screen time have actually reduced gray matter, which affects executive function, retaining memories, learning, and reward processing. And so with this increased reliance of technology and social media in people like Gen Zs or younger than that, during those critical periods of brain development, studies now suggest there is going to be mild cognitive impairment to early to middle adulthood, and researchers at the Center of Disease Control and Prevention actually project that the rate of Alzheimer's and dementia-related diseases in the United States are actually going to increase twofold by 2060. And these technologies have only been around for such a short period of time, and they are not going anywhere. And no one really fully understands the long-term effect of what that is actually going to have on our brain. So the question isn't, should we use AI? Should we completely remove it? It's how do we stay intelligent in a world that rewards convenience? How do we protect our brains, the thing that people literally pay you for, the thing that differentiates you from everybody else in this world of constant digital stimulation? So here are my 6 strategies to protect your brain health. These are little guidelines that you can always come back to, but also to allow you to enjoy your life off the screens as well. The first strategy is the think first rule. Think first before you plug into AI or the TikTok search bar. This is where we use AI as an enhancer, as a tool to assist in learning and creativity instead of completely outsourcing our entire thinking to AI. So for me, when I have ideas, which is a lot, I think so much all the time, instead of going to ChatGPT like, what do you think of X? Or come up with an entire episode about digital era, and they spit out this monotonous robotic thing, I flesh out the idea first. I will write down how I want to perceive it, how I visualize it, or I will like completely free write a topic, a carousel, a podcast episode. And then I use chat or AI to enhance my language, maybe the flow, to pull out parts that I really want to emphasize. But it is my voice, it is my idea, it is my concept, it is my research being dragged into it. And that is what creates the best work. Instead of ChatGPT like spitting out this thing and you literally sound like everybody else. That's why everyone's captions always started to sound the same. That's why Reels started to sound the same. Like ChatGPT and AI starts just use similar words that other people are saying, you can like almost hear it from a mile away now. But when you use your brain first, when you think first, that is what creates the best outcome, when you can kind of combine the two together. Because AI cannot replace you as a human. It cannot replace your experience. It cannot mimic your own unique neuron connections or your creative thoughts that come to you when you come in a shower. AI can like engage in processes that resemble critical thinking, like data analysis, problem solving, modeling, but it has limitations. Critical thinking requires human experience, the human insight. It has ethics. It has moral reasoning. It is thinking outside the box. Machines today lack all of that, and their processes are only recursive. That is why when you use AI, we want to be leveraging your brain's uniqueness first. Strategy number 2 is incorporating analog living into your life. The number of posts with hashtag analog life have dramatically increased by more than 330% during 2025 because of this whole like digital exhaustion that we're feeling. And the design of this analog resurgence isn't to replace digital living, digital life, like that is impossible, but adding more analog living into your days, into your life. And an article said this so beautifully. It's not about regression, but it is slowing down to create more meaning in the present, which I absolutely loved. So for a lot of people, maybe it's diving into an analog hobby like gardening or playing an instrument or painting or going for a bike ride or board games and puzzles and coloring in. And we know coloring is scientifically proven to bring you back into the parasympathetic state. It's just doing something that brings you joy outside of this constant digital doom scrolling that we get into. And the caveat with all of these is we need it to feel rewarding. We need it to feel just as enjoyable, just as dopamine stimulating. Otherwise, if we're sinking into boredom, we will likely drive you straight back into the TikTok doom scroll. And what I've also loved about the analog resurgence is the concept of the analog bag. Basically, it is like a bag of hobbies, like music, maybe knitting, maybe a book, maybe coloring in, that you can take with you and use instead of just like doom scrolling on your phone. You pull it out maybe when you're in a cafe or you're waiting for things, or you go with your girlfriends on a cute little date to a cafe and you sit there both with your analog bag and you do your little analog fun hobbies while you just yap away. To me, this is so wholesome, but it is much needed brain break from our constant screen, from our constant stimulation, from our constant digital obsessions. The third strategy of protecting your brain in a digital world is reading long form content. And I am not talking about just reading the headline or the like abstract that they give you where they summarize the dot points. It is really discovering how good writing, good journalism actually engages the critical thinking mind. It's intentionally having articles or places that you can go to read a bit more long form content. And I'm not talking like fiction or like your romance smut that we all love to read. It is places like The Cult or Vanity Fair or those really like online magazine eras, or even like analog magazines. It doesn't even have to be like information dense on like a particular topic like metabolism or learn how to create your finances. It can just be someone's perspective. It could just be a diving into a particular topic which someone is critically analyzing, maybe like why friendship seems harder as adults, or why we've reverted to the heroin chic look in the 90s, which I literally cannot believe this is occurring. And there's also so many Substacks now because people are wanting to engage and write in more long form content. And that's why in the Wellness Edit, which is my weekly curated newsletter for ambitious women, I intentionally add long form articles, not only in my writing, but also for you to read and engage in. And you may not even realize that's what I'm doing, but I am literally improving your brain health because, you know, as a practitioner, I am all into health. I am improving your brain health every time you decide to click on that article to read, because it is diving deeper into a particular topic. It is allowing you to think about it, to analyze it, to think, do I disagree? Do I agree? Maybe hear interesting perspectives. And the point is to get your brain processing, to get you working, to get you thinking, instead of having random pieces of content you like literally fly at your face all the time. So when we dive into these types of articles, when we get curious also, it actually neurobiologically activates your brain regions, such as the ventral tegmental area, that is associated with reward and enhanced learning. So by spending time learning something new from hearing someone's perspective, you're actually curating our intellectual hardware while enjoying exploring and reading and learning something new. So yeah, diving into long form articles stimulates your brain, stimulates curiosity, which creates these beautiful neurological adaptations in your brain. Number 4, probably my most favorite, the commonplace brain. For a bit of context, so Andrew constantly laughs, like we'll be in the kitchen and we'll be doing something and I'll be like, oh my God, I have an idea. I just got to write it down. And I am known for the girl that has like sticky notes everywhere. Like I just write things down. And probably 2 years ago, I started adopting writing things down into notebooks, very specific notebooks that I had when I had to write down things that I wanted to remember or ideas that popped in my head or creative things that I wanted to like brainstorm. And I had one beside my bed and I had one in my bag that I always carried like everywhere, to events, to shops, to random things. You never know when an idea will pop into your head, which to be honest, it was a bit hard at first. When I was younger, I always had these notebooks and they were beautiful notebooks, but I refused to write in them because I didn't want my messy scrawl or like random ideas. It always had to be like, oh, this is for a specific purpose and my writing has to be perfect. I didn't want to ruin it with my ugly writing. It had to be neat and tidy. And so I ended up hoarding all these notebooks that were aesthetics and then obviously end up throwing out because like, you know, I grow up and I don't want to use a Minnie Mouse notebook anymore. I literally can't be the only one that does this. But anyway, regardless of my like disdain of wanting to write in a notebook and messy it up with all these random bits of non-linked ideas, it turns out there's actually a name for this notebook technique called the commonplace notebook. And not only is there a name for it, but it was actually trendy to have these during the 1700s and the 1800s. And it was widely used by scholars and scientists and anyone with like an intellectual ambition to document their thoughts or their observations or their knowledge to help improve their memory or generate new ideas and insights. So now I feel so validated in my decision to start having these notebooks around my house. And look, if it's good enough for the Einsteins of that generation, it is good enough for my brain. And I definitely feel like writing down, putting pen to paper has not only helped my ability to retain information, but it is a form of creativity and ideas, and I can flesh things out instead of like just going automatically to AI to insert it in. So the commonplace notebook, I highly recommend, especially if someone who maybe you have neurospicy brain or you have all these ideas. It has been a game changer for the way I think, the way I create. Yeah, absolutely recommend. Strategy number 5 is the dopamine swap method. A lot of technology apps these days are designed to keep you on your phone as long as possible. They are literally billion-dollar companies working as hard as they can and working out algorithms that will show you what you enjoy constantly, consistently to keep you on that app. So feeling guilty about like not having control is not the solution. That's what the billion-dollar industry is making you do. It's replacing that insane enjoyment and that same fun, that same reward for scrolling on your phone with something else. In behavioral psychology and neuroscience, this is a technique called habit loop replacement. Any addictive habits, and let's be honest, your phone is addictive, they consist of a cue, reward, and then routine. So for instance, a cue might be boredom or wanting to decompress from the afternoon, or you're in the shopping line and you like instantly pick up your phone and scroll. The routine is to pick up your phone. The reward is dopamine. So in order to replace the scrolling, instead of attempting to like suppress or try and like use sheer willpower not to use it, we need to keep the cue and reward, but we replace the routine with something equally dopamine stimulating so that you'll still get that reward, that dopamine spike in your brain. Some examples of dopamine inducing activities that we can replace that routine with are things like reading a book or drawing or dancing or a walk or puzzles or ringing someone you love or voice noting them, listening to music you love, petting a pet, watering your garden, tidying a space increases dopamine, watching an episode on Netflix with your partner, yoga. So all of these things are designed to replace, to stimulate dopamine. So instead of automatically going on your phone to doom scroll, we can replace it with something just as fun. It ties similarly to that analog era where we're adding in these analog things into our lives, but we're building up our our dopamine stores instead of automatically going to your phone to decompress. And the final strategy to help protect your brain health in the digital era is the health aspects. Obviously, the state and the function and the cognitive ability of your brain is significantly impacted by your health. And it would be amiss as a health practitioner to not talk about this and leave this out, because your brain health is significantly influenced by your diet, your lifestyle, your sleep. So if I talk about your diet, your brain uses 20% of your body's total energy. So what you eat matters. What you fuel your body with matters. So eating more of that whole food, anti-inflammatory diet full of healthy fats, because your brain is literally 60% fat. Complex carbs, because glucose is the preferred energy source of your brain. Protein and fiber. Fiber then influences your brain through the microbiome and your gut health. Then physical exercise literally boosts your brain health by increasing blood flow, oxygenation. But the coolest part, a little bit nerdy, but stay with me, is the release of growth factors, like the brain-derived neurotrophic factors, which is a protein crucial for the growth and repair and survival of your little brain cells, and forming new neural connections associated with learning and memory and retention and cognitive processing. And then obviously sleep. Your brain is able to complete its regenerative processes and its detoxification, its memory consolidation, all occur overnight when you get into those deep sleep states. And these are just three. This is only just the surface of what health does for your brain and how it impacts it. But it's just understanding that health will literally drive the neuron firing, the physical matter in your brain, the cognitive output. That's why health is never just about just eating well or drinking water, but it's about how you perform. It's about how your brain performs every single day, which is your absolute advantage in this life. Because no one has a brain like you. No one thinks like you. No one has the same neural firing as you do. And so protecting your brain, protecting your health is what's going to differentiate you. And I think I've said that so many times in this podcast episode, but I am driving it home. So there are 6 strategies to protect your brain health in a digital world, in an overwhelming sense of information, in a world that has billion-dollar industries designed to keep you on a platform. These are your little takeaways. I would love to hear from you. Let me know what you think about this episode in the comments. I actually loved this episode, and it's just something that's not talked about enough. And as always, I hope you have a fabulous rest of the week, and I will see you next week.